is on science and engineering research leading to innovation, entrepreneurship, and scholarship, which is being organized jointly by CSIR, Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, and IEEE to commemorate the contribution of scientists, researchers, and technologists as we celebrate Azadi Ki Mahotsav, the 75th year of independence. So let's get going. I request Professor Harinatha Rao, Chairman IEEE section, to give his welcome address and opening remarks. Professor Harinath.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Good morning. I'm audible, madam. I'm audible. Good morning, sir. I'm audible. Hello.
Sir, you are audible.
Yeah. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Dr. Edvi sir and Amarjit Singh sir. And good morning to all who are present on this occasion. I welcome you all for this online lecture series being conducted by IICT Hyderabad in association with the PES Joint Chapter, PES IAS Power Trans Society Joint Chapter of IEEE Hyderabad section. So I'm very happy that we are associating with IICT Hyderabad, and I should be thankful to Dr. N.B. Satyanarayan Rao sir, for inviting us to be a part of this program. And we are very happy, and of course all of us know that this series is started and it is being organized to commemorate the contribution of scientists, researchers and technologists as a part of 75th year celebrations of Indian independence. That is Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav as a part of that. So this lecture series was started and even along with us, IEEE Anantapur subsection and IEEE Guntur subsection is also happily accepted to be a part of this lecture series. And we are once again thankful to IICT Hyderabad for making us to be a part of this. And of course, all of us, the main mode of this lecture series is to provide an online platform for invited speakers to present their perspectives of vision to drive Indian science and technology toward innovation, entrepreneurship, and scholarship. So, as far as the information given by IICT Hyderabad and also Dr. N.V. sir, the invited speakers are drawn from a pool of researchers and who have undertaken the jointly from ideation to innovation or have even led similar programs. So, this particular lecture series is a month-long series which will witness 12 invited speakers. And the first among this particular lecture series started by Dr. Amarjit Singh sir.
Sir, correct sir.
And Professor Amarjit Singh sir, the first speaker to be a part of this online lecture series. And we are very much happy, sir, to be a part of this, and we are very much eager to listen your topic. Thank you very much, sir. I request now it's over to IICT Hyderabad.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Due to some pressing engagements, Sri Srinivas Lola is not able to make it to this event. In his place, I have the pleasant duty of welcoming today's speaker, Professor Amarjit Singh from IIT Delhi is a co-founder and CTO of Genetics Solutions. Genetics is engaged in providing IoT-based digital infrastructure for retail chains and buildings. The solution offered are in the form of energy efficiency, improved comfort, safety compliance, and better asset management supported by predictive and preventive maintenance. Before starting genetics, he was a faculty in computer science and engineering and ECE departments at IIT Delhi, where he has published in various journals of repute in the domains of sensor networks, robotics, data analytics, artificial intelligence, and environmental science. Dr. Amarjit Singh received his MS and PhD in electrical engineering at University of California and BTech from IIT Delhi. Let us start this session with the first invited lecture from Professor Dr. Amarjit Singh. Yes, sir. Professor
Thank you,
Amarjit Singh.
Benias. Thank you for the kind introduction. Uh, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, sir. You are audible. You can carry on for this session.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you all for inviting me and to sort of kickstart this lecture series. And I'm quite excited that this lecture series is at the cusp of research and entrepreneurship and innovation, right? I think that's something that's critically required, especially in the Indian context, whereby not very many people from the academic setting move on to take entrepreneurial roles, right, and take on innovations of wide variety, right? I mean, of course, there's a lot of innovation that comes out in the form of research publications, but those innovations translating into state of the art, large scale technology companies that are built in India but built for the world uh, are are in some sense missing, right? And I think perhaps lecture series like these would serve as the right platform to motivate many people in the academic environment to take up the challenges on that other side as well, and sort of build large, technically innovative uh, organizations of tomorrow. Right. I have myself been on both the sides. I was a faculty, and I'm still affiliated with IIIT Delhi, currently on sabbatical. And whatever we started working on as Zenitech was all started as a research project only, right? We instrumented the whole IIIT Delhi campus. We collected a huge amount of data. We were able to get a lot of energy savings for the campus. And that's when we realized that perhaps this same thing can be taken forward to create a startup which can then scale up this technology access for very large scale to create a large scale sustainable impact, right, and reduce the energy consumption. So today I'll be talking about how IoT, which is actually the core of the technology that we build at Zenitech, is revolutionizing the building automation in India. Right. So just for the context of everybody, building management systems or building automation systems have been in existence for almost 3 decades. Right. I mean, there are large companies like Schneider, Honeywell, Johnson Control, Trane, etc. that exist, and these are all multi-billion-dollar companies that exist in this space. And typically, what a building management system or a building automation system would do is that they would instrument the building with uh, sensors and actuators, and then there are these control devices to which these sensors and actuators get connected, which eventually would then control different subsystems operating within the building. These subsystems could be HVAC, water-based systems, access control systems, fire alarm systems, even power systems, right? Uh, so these building management systems have been running large-scale buildings greater than 100,000 square feet and have a very large penetration in the Western context. But in the Indian context, this penetration is very, very low. So less than 5 to 7% of the buildings in India have building management systems, right? And when we look at buildings which are less than 100,000 square feet, globally, there is a large gap, right? Because the cost of the building management system doesn't justify the ROI. right? Now, coming to the core of why managing these assets in the building is important. Buildings consume roughly about 40% of the global energy, right? And emit about 33% of the greenhouse gas emissions across the world, right? Now, 20 to 30% of this energy is going waste because of inefficient operation. If you can operate these buildings in an optimal manner, we are talking about saving 10% of the global energy consumption, right? And reducing greenhouse gas emissions by an equivalent amount, right? The challenge here is that 50% of the buildings that would exist by 2050 are already built today in 2021, right? So essentially, these buildings already exist. They are already big energy guzzlers. They are already wasting energy. So how can you bring in retrofits in these buildings to reduce the energy consumption and to make them more energy efficient? Further, to ensure that as the newer buildings come up, this energy efficient operation becomes part of the blueprint that is uh, addressed appropriately in the design phase itself, so that the buildings that are constructed and eventually operated are both constructed in an energy efficient manner and then are operated in an energy efficient manner as well. So, as I said, I mean, you can largely divide buildings in two segments, right? There are small buildings which are less than 100,000 square feet, large buildings which are greater than 100,000 square feet. In the large buildings, the building management system does exist, but there are challenges to it, which I'll talk about in more detail. In the smaller buildings, less than 100,000 square feet, the building management system just doesn't exist, right? So think of, for example, Domino stores, right? Domino's operates 1,100 stores across the country. Each store spends about 60 to 70,000 rupees of electricity bill per month. So eventually, we are talking about 10 to 15 crores of electricity consumption across these 1,100 stores in a year, right? Now, if about 15 to 20% of this energy is getting wasted, in a way, if that wastage is reduced, we are talking about not just reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, but also crores of rupees of savings for just a single chain like Domino's. And now think of that there are hundreds of these chains that exist, right? So essentially, for small buildings, the challenge is sort of different than large buildings, because for the small buildings, the infrastructure is very distributed, right? These are retail chains like Domino's. These could be multiplex cinemas. These could be co-working spaces. These could be warehouses, right? Let me now go into even the existing building management systems that exist for large buildings, why it hasn't scaled up in countries like India, right? As I said, only 2% of the buildings with less than 50,000 square feet can afford BMS. The cost of the BMS doesn't justify the ROI for small buildings. These are largely wired systems, which means that buildings that already exist and don't have these systems, it's very difficult to instrument those buildings with these wired systems, right? Because these buildings are already operating. You can't run, and typically, let's say, 200,000 square feet building would have perhaps more than a kilometer of cable running across, right? So laying out such thousands of meters of cable in an existing building is just not possible because the buildings are already operational. Then, because these systems are all wired systems, one would always recommend that you instrument the whole thing all upfront rather than taking it stage by stage, which would mean a much higher upfront investment and lack of transparency into perhaps which components are critical and good to start with, and once you reap benefits from those components, then you can slowly add on to more components. Most of these building management systems are on-premise, so they do connect with sensors and actuators, but all these wired systems then eventually come back and connect uh, with a single computer within the facility, sitting in what is called as a BMS room, right? And an operator sitting in the BMS room can then control all the assets within the building. But imagine, why can't all these assets be connected over cloud, right? And then the operator can be sitting anywhere in the world and managing it in a secure manner. The other aspect is which relates to on-premise deployment, because um, all the data is going into a single computer, right? That data is not being put to effective use. Ideally, I mean, a BMS would be collecting millions of data points. Those millions of data points should be put to use to, one, understand um, which assets are not working properly, which sensors within the BMS are not working properly, and also to decide data-driven control, right? Rather than putting a static temperature that, okay, run my air conditioning at 25 degrees Celsius, perhaps run it based on data that if the occupancy of the building is lower, then increase the set temperature, and if the occupancy is higher, then reduce the set temperature, right? So that data-driven operation uh, and data-driven fault detection and diagnosis, both of these things are missing in these traditional BMS systems. And that is where IoT can come in and play a significant role in revolutionizing the way these building management systems operate. I hope this initial overview sets up the context nicely that uh, what is building automation, what are the challenges in automating existing versus new building, large versus small building, and even when you automate it with traditional building management systems, why these disconnected, wired, expensive building management systems are not the right fit versus the IoT based system that I'll be now talking about in the rest of my talk. So before I get into, see, one of the biggest challenges is that the initial systems, I mean, the current systems are all wired, right? Now, if we have to move from wired to wireless, there are a bunch of competing technologies, right? So before I get into these wireless based BMS systems, I thought I'll set the context of some of these wireless technologies that sort of compete in this context, right? There is a low power star network topology uh, like LoRa, right? In this case, LoRa is very low power, uh, and every sensor talks directly to the gateway. It's not a multi-hop mesh, right? But uh, it is low power because it's communicating very infrequently, right? And typically the communication is a unidirectional communication from sensor to the gateway, not from the gateway back to the device, which means that it is not meant for control. But because it is low power, these sensors are typically battery powered and they are very easy to deploy. On the contrary, I mean, these are all, LoRa is also proprietary protocol, right? And there are chipsets coming in, but then, I mean, the world is moving towards open protocols, right? I mean, we all are familiar with Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi is very, very power hungry. Because it is power hungry, you need a power plug for every sensor, which means you cannot just deploy a sensor anywhere and everywhere, right? However, Wi-Fi is very open protocol, very low cost chipsets do exist. Now, if we try to marry these two and say that I need an open protocol and I need that protocol to be IP based, I need that protocol to be very low power also so that the operation can be battery powered, then that is where OpenThread starts coming in. OpenThread is an open source protocol, open source by Google. It's a multi-hop wireless mesh, very low power consumption, so you can have battery powered sensors. It is IP based, so you can have a bi-directional communication between the end node and the gateway. Very easy to deploy because these are battery powered. And very recently, I mean, over the last couple of years, there's a lot of, even at the commercial level, a lot of innovation is happening. So three large companies in this space, right? Google, Apple, and Amazon. They all have come together and they have created what is called as CHIP, Connected Home over IP. Very recently, they renamed CHIP as Matter, right? And the underlying layer for both the chip and the Matter is the Open Thread wireless protocol, right? So essentially, this Open Thread is sort of gaining traction and is becoming sort of a de facto standard, which large companies like Google, Apple, and Amazon are also adopting, right? It's not just these large companies, but a lot of chipset manufacturers like Nordic Semiconductor, Texas Instruments, Qualcomm, they all have chipsets which support Zigbee, OpenThread, and BLE. Again, I didn't talk about Zigbee and BLE because one, Zigbee is similar to OpenThread, but is a proprietary network. BLE also works in the 2.4 gigahertz range, but its multi-hop is different. So in a way, BLE 5.0 and OpenThread are two competing open source technologies which are low power wireless mesh and are combining the best of the both worlds in terms of combining what LoRa offers and what Wi-Fi offers, right? So with this small introduction into different wireless technologies, let me now move into how these wireless technologies can put to effective use for building automation, right? Now imagine that you would have these battery powered sensors. It's a very small node that we have built, runs on two AAA batteries, and even with 30-second sampling rate, the two AAA batteries can last for about 2 years, right? You can just stick this sensor anywhere because it's battery powered. It need not be connected to the power socket, and it monitors different aspects: temperature, humidity, light intensity. There are also sensors which would monitor PM 2.5, CO2, PM10, AQI, etc., vibration, pressure. So there are a whole bunch of sensors that exist. They are all plug and play, very easy to deploy. You are simply sticking them on. Very easy to retrofit. In an existing building, you don't need to run cables. Just simply stick on these sensors wherever you want to collect data. And these battery powered nodes eventually talk to the nearest power node, and that power node can be anywhere above the false ceiling, somewhere nearby where there is a power socket. And these power nodes are eventually then creating a multi-hop wireless mesh amongst themselves. And these battery powered nodes are connecting to these power nodes as child nodes, right? So this is an example of a mesh which is created in one of the deployments that we did, where these square nodes are the power nodes and the round nodes are the sensor nodes. In this case, you can see that the mesh is so rugged that there are so many connectivities between each power node that even if you switch off one power node, the whole network is self-healing. So the routing nodes will again self-heal themselves and will create the network without that routing node as well. And the child nodes which were connected to the routing node which was powered off will then automatically connect to the nearest routing node, which is giving them the best signal strength, right? So the whole network is self-healing, multi-hop, fault resistant, and open protocol, works in an open 2.4 gigahertz range. All of these things sort of make it an ideal protocol to deploy in large buildings, right? Now, here we were talking about sensing, right? If we have to do control, we also built a same wireless control node talking on the same wireless mesh. In this case, because it's a control node, it is a power node, and it consists of some IOs, right? Think of this control node as people in the automation world commonly use terms like DDC, digital controller, direct digital controller, or a PLC, programmable logic controller. Think of this as a wireless PLC or a wireless DDC, which has analog digital inputs and outputs, to which you can connect any sensor or any actuator, which are talking over these standard protocols like 0 to 10 volt, 4 to 20 milliamp, 24 volt digital, 230 volt digital, Modbus, etc. And it will convert all of these protocols into wireless. Right? So in a way, it's doing the wireless translation, whereby these standard sensors now can be connected to this box, and this box will then get connected to a centralized gateway, which is over a wireless network. Right? Now, again, imagine a building whereby you can throw these battery powered sensors anywhere in the occupied area. Then the air conditioning is typically done from specialized places like spaces like AHU rooms, the VAVs, variable air volumes that are above the ceiling, etc. So these control nodes would then get deployed there to do wireless control. And all of these are creating a completely wireless network, then that then terminates into a gateway. So this gateway is again an industrial grade gateway, but built on a completely open protocol. So it uses a Raspberry Pi compute module. It's not the Raspberry Pi, but the industrial grade compute module that comes from Raspberry Pi, which has the same processor, but it has an onboard disk and a higher RAM. Right? So this gateway gives the industrial grade connectivity over again this open hardware, which is Raspberry Pi, which is widely adopted across the world. And then on top of it, you can extend it to connect to multiple of these wireless and wired protocols. Wired include BACnet, IP, Modbus, MBus, CAN, and wireless include Zigbee, LoRa, Bluetooth, OpenThread, right? So essentially just the same gateway with different types of hardware attachment can be extended to see the gateway in any of these networks, whether they are wireless or wired, right? So how are these things now coming together, right? So there are, let's say, these chilled water pumps, which are off the shelf, and some of these, let's say, air differential switch, which is an off the shelf sensor. Both of these get connected to the wireless control card. The wireless control card, based on the air differential pressure, is controlling the pump, right? And is talking to the gateway over a wireless protocol. The same wireless IO card is also acting like a routing node for, let's say, other battery powered sensors like temperature, vibration, humidity, etc. in the building. So everything gets connected to, and then you deploy different gateways. If the building is very large, you divide the building into smaller zones and you deploy one gateway in each zone. All of these sensors and actuators are wirelessly talking to the gateway. The gateway talks to the cloud. The whole notion of the building comes together in the cloud. So each of these zones then group are in the software group together to create an entity of a building, right? And because the gateway can connect to other standard traditional wired protocols also, so there are already older systems that exist in the building that talk over these traditional protocols like Modbus and BACnet. They can be directly integrated with the gateway as well. All of these come together in the cloud. Now imagine these millions of data points going into the cloud, where you do fault detection, diagnosis, intelligent control, etc. Using all this large volume of data that is coming in, right? And essentially, the way we have conceptualized this is that you only need a limited amount of custom hardware, right? So you only need one IO card to connect to thousands of sensors and thousands of actuators, right? Once you have a wireless temperature humidity sensor, which is battery powered, then extending it to wireless PM 2.5, wireless vibration, wireless pressure, wireless luminosity, these are all very, very straightforward things, right? And then you are also talking over standard protocols like BACnet, SNMP, and Modbus, right? So essentially, with only a small set of custom hardware, you are able to connect a wide variety of air conditioning equipment, all the way from your split ACs to the ductable ACs to the VRVs to the water-based systems, which may have AHUs, rooftop units, ceiling suspended units, variable air volumes. Essentially, think of any asset, and pretty much with this small set of field devices, you could be ready to connect any of these assets, right? That is the beauty, that you don't need, for a wide variety of assets that exist in the building, you don't need a huge variety of your field devices also. Only a small subset of field devices can then connect via gateway to the cloud. And then that is where you can have cloud-based data management, cloud-based health management. So because all of these devices are not just communicating data, for example, a wireless temperature sensor doesn't just communicate temperature data, but also communicate the receive signal strength, right? And if your receive signal strength is becoming poor, then you know that perhaps there is some noise that is coming in the environment, and by perhaps adding one extra routing node, you can circumvent that noise, right? So you can take proactive, preventive action based on the health of your own assets. When I say own, these automation assets, as well as from the temperature data, luminosity data, humidity data, you can then create fault detection and diagnosis for your equipment also, right? So essentially, this is how this IoT-based full stack solution is coming in as an alternative to traditional BMS. You have wireless sensing and wireless control. All this is talking to an open industrial grade gateway, which is also extensible to connect to the traditional devices over traditional protocols like Modbus, BACnet, IP. All of these devices connect to the cloud, to the IoT stack on the cloud, and the data doesn't just remain within the facility. And then there is a plug and play platform which is used to easily instrument the existing building you can very safely assume that the building continues to be operational. People just walk in, click on these sensors. The occupants will not even feel any pain, right? And they can walk out, right? So the whole plug and play makes it possible, and the wireless notion makes it possible to deploy in a huge amount of existing buildings that already exist, where the traditional wired BMS, which is also very expensive, will not be an option, right? Because of the many challenges that have been talked about earlier in the talk. Right? So why is the world moving towards IoT-based technology? It's hardware light, software intelligent. It's OEM and machine agnostic, right? So we are saying that we can connect the traditional assets also, and we can bring in our own new hardware as well. It's completely wireless, right? So you can retrofit the existing building, and it is very easy to deploy. It's a distributed architecture, right? So rather than all these control nodes talking over wired protocol to one single gateway within the building, we are saying that let's no matter how big your building is, let's divide the building into smaller zones, and one gateway serves each zone, and each gateway independently talks to the cloud, and the notion of the building or the campus comes together in the cloud. Because you are now collecting a huge amount of data in the cloud, you can have data analytics on top of it and power much smarter control and even fault detection diagnosis. And this whole thing is much lower cost than the traditional BMS system and gives you a shorter return on your investment. Right? So Zenetix is a purely built in India, built for the world IoT technology company for this built environment, and serving a huge gap of wireless retrofitting in large buildings, as well as giving an automation to smaller, less than 100,000 square feet buildings. Right? Now that I have talked about the system, let me show you some of the use cases from the data that comes out from these systems. Right? One is energy management. Right? So look at it here. The blue line was when the air conditioning used to get switched on and switched off, right? Switched on at around 10 o'clock, switched off at around 4:15 in the evening. When we started doing data-driven control, we were able to shift this on operation by a little bit and also the off operation by a little bit, thus saving the overall energy consumption without compromising the customer comfort. Same is the use case with lighting control. We were able to delay the on time and preempt the off time to then, because of the data driven intelligent control, which led to reduced energy consumption. Second is I've been talking about fault detection and diagnosis. So the way the air conditioning works is that you have a compressor which is taking part in the thermodynamic cycle that is happening within the air conditioner. And let's say you set the temperature to 24 degrees Celsius. Once the temperature reaches 24, the compressor will shut off, right? And then the temperature in the room starts rising. And when the temperature, let's say, reaches 25, the compressor will again switch on. And then the temperature will start falling, and this on and off cycle of the compressor keeps on happening, right? So this is what is a good compressor operation, where compressor is showing this on and off, on and off, on and off throughout the day, right? If your compressor is on throughout the day, one, it is consuming more energy. Two, it's an indicator of that the compressor will eventually have some fault in it and is eventually going to break down. So it's also an indicator that it's the time when one should go out and get the maintenance done. So this maintenance is then leading to better management of your assets and also reduce energy consumption, because if the compressor was on all the time, it's consuming much more energy. Right? Now, data-driven risk detection. Now, again, for some of you who may be from electrical engineering, you would know that for a three-phase supply, the loads on each of the phases should be equally distributed so that the current is equal in each of the phases. Otherwise, the three-phase motors which are connected to the same supply would have varied amount of power factor and current flowing through each of these phases, and that would lead to poor winding operation in these motor operations. Right? Again, when you have a lot of this data coming in, you can see previously the three phases were not balanced. So the R phase had 41.7 value, Y phase had 16.7 current, and the blue phase had 36.2. After it was pointed out, the current across the three phases is pretty much then balanced out, right? Leading to better operation. Right? Again, several of these things will go unnoticed if you are not looking at the data properly and minutely, and therefore may miss out on the health of the overall health of the asset. And then it's about temperature and humidity compliance, right? So many of us would have experienced it that when we are in a building, right, it's either too hot or too cold, right? Several of us would have seen that even in winter, you walk into the building, it's perhaps warmer than what you would want, and you would need to turn on the fan, right? While on the contrary, in summertime, the building is colder than what you want, and you may turn on a local heater, right? That's because the whole operation of the building is not done in an optimal manner, right? So what we do is again stick on these easy to deploy battery powered temperature humidity sensors, and then try to give actionable insights to the customer where, let's say, both the temperature and humidity are appropriately maintained. Then it's a comfortable zone, which is shown by green color here. If either of the temperature or humidity is high, it's an uncomfortable zone where some action is required to either reduce the temperature or reduce the humidity. If both the temperature and humidity is high, then that means that your air conditioning is not operating efficiently. And therefore, that's an alarming situation, and perhaps you should get predictive maintenance done for your asset. Right? This is an indicator of CO2 level. Many of us over the last couple of years have spent a lot more time inside the building, right? Whether it is in our houses or staying indoors, right? Now it's very important for us to monitor what kind of CO2 levels are we maintaining, because they directly impact the productivity and how our mind operates, right? So this is again looking at the CO2 indicator in the building, and perhaps in several cases what we have done is based on this, if the CO2 level is going high, we would switch on the TFAs, what is called as a treated fresh air unit. So rather than just recirculating the indoor air, cold air, we would bring in the fresh air from outside, cool it in summer or warm it in winter, and then circulate that treated fresh air rather than just recirculating the indoor air to maintain better CO2 levels, right? Again, all of these things are critical if you and are coming out if you are monitoring in detail. If you are not monitoring in detail, none of these observations will eventually come out, right? And your buildings will not just waste energy, there will not be proper maintenance of assets, and even the occupants within the building are not working appropriately because, I mean, you are not giving them an appropriate environment for improving their productivity. It's a brief about Zenetix. As I said, it was started in 2014. Rahul, Vishal and I, we were all classmates at IIT Delhi. We know each other for more than 20 years now. We all came together and started Zenetix. We early on, several of the key investors like Rajan Anandan, who was the head of Google India and Southeast Asia, Rohit and Kunal, who are the co-founders of Snapdeal, etc. These were the key investors early on in the Zenetix journey. And then institutional investors like Bloom and Pi Ventures invested into the company. Eventually, in 2018, we became part of a bigger Hero Electronics group. It's a multi-billion-dollar Hero group and they have set up a separate subsidiary called Hero Electronics to invest into connected solutions of tomorrow. We have been deployed at more than 2,000 locations across more than 200 cities in India, right? And we have been collecting more than 200 million data points every day, right? a lot of these data points have been used by students to publish papers in reputed journals as well as several of the colleagues who have worked at Zenate, based on their work, have then moved on to take up higher studies, both in India as well as in the US from the top universities, right? So I'll just finish off by, if you, that we are always looking for smart people to come on board. If you are an undergraduate student and would like to do a 6-month internship with your coursework, we have several intern positions open. If you are a graduate student who is working on your own PhD and masters, come and spend 6 to 12 months with us. We have large scale wireless systems deployed in the field, and we have billions of data points coming from these systems. These all could be good opportunities to write good top tier publications. If you have already graduated and are looking for further higher studies from top universities in the US, come and build your CV. Again, we have the top technologies, we have huge amount of data. Work with us for a couple of years, get quality publications, build up your CV, and get admission in the top university. And if you are a faculty, encourage your undergrad and grad students to take one of the paths above, right? World is moving towards a lot of applied research, and many students who early on get involved in such applied research will immensely benefit from collaborations with Zenate. So with this, I'll finish off, and I'll be open to questions.
Thank you, Professor. It was a very nice lecture, and kindly unmute. And I request the attendees to post their questions. However, there are few questions from YouTube attendees. There are questions from Pallavi Banjari, Kinera Kiran, Vishwa Teja, and the sound is echoing. Please kindly unmute it. I think now properly. Echoing. Sorry, sir, for the interruption. For the question from Pallavi Banjari is, can we install these in the lab to prevent accidents? So actually, sir, her question is related to, we are having chemical laboratories. And in chemical laboratories, we have some plant setups are there, some chemical reactions are going on. Pallavi Banjari is a student from chemical engineering. She is also a DST women scientist. And she has posted this question, can we install these in the lab to prevent the accidents?
That's an interesting question. We have never come across such a use case, but I would assume that it's a very simple sensing and actuation cycle. You don't actually, for this kind of a use case, there could be two types of systems, right? One is whereby you may have an appropriate gas sensor which would detect specific presence of specific gases which are indicators of an accident, and then may sound an alarm locally, right? In that case, you don't need that data to go to the cloud and then an SMS to come to someone, right? So a physical alarm can be sounded, but perhaps let's say if the same thing is happening during the night time when there is no one in the lab, the same thing can then be sent to the cloud, and a real-time SMS can be sent to someone. I think the important piece here is, what is that sensor that would sense this specific indicator of an accident. And then the alarming thing could be a local bell or could be a SMS, real-time database SMS. Those are easy. But otherwise, I mean, if such a sensor exists, I mean, it's a simple sense, monitor, and then act cycle, right? Which is true in many of our cases. We do it based on temperature, humidity. It can be done based on any other sensor as well.
Sir, the next question. Sir, the next question is from Kinnara Kiran. His question is IoT building management system is industry 4.0 or 5.0?
Yeah, I mean, these are all buzzwords, right? I don't think there is any definition of industry 4.0, 5.0, etc. I think it's about all these versioning is sort of saying that how the state of the art is advancing. Our industrial segment is still far away from installing completely wireless systems, right? Which is why we started with the use case of buildings, because buildings are still a better controlled environment where you have lesser noise, the temperature is controlled, etc. The moment you go to industry, the amount of noise in the environment or the amount, I mean, temperature, etc., all these become much more adverse. I think forget about industries, even buildings haven't yet adopted a completely wireless technology. So whether it is 4.0 or 5.0, it doesn't matter. I think the first, I mean, the real talk should be that can we move from wired to wireless and how can we undertake that journey?
Sir, the next question is from Vishwateja. Is it possible to introduce predictive algorithms based on past usage, that is smoother algorithms, to better control the systems rather than traditional feedback algorithms?
Yeah, this is what we do all the time. As I was explaining in the talk, I mean, we collect 200 million data points every day, right? And we have been feeding on this large volume of data to build better and better algorithms. Honestly, our experience has been that because nobody has seen such a large scale data, right? There are still low hanging fruits. You may do a much simpler decision making if you can find the right patterns in the data, right? Without going into complex machine learning and AI, right? So again, I think we need to do the baby steps, right? While the research may look at more complex machine learning AI algorithms, in practice, in real environment, even basic algorithms which can feed on this large volume of data to do actual data-driven control, these are also missing, right? So at Zenetix, we try to do both. We try to both advance the state-of-the-art algorithm as well as make sure that there is data-driven decision-making that is happening, which is largely missing.
Thank you, sir. Now I also request our professors and other organizers team in the audience in MS team, they can unmute their mics and they can ask question to professor.
Yeah, madam, I'm audible, madam.
You are audible. Yes.
Yeah. Sir, good morning, sir. This is Dr. Harinath Reddy, Chair of PS Joint Chapter of IEEE Hyderabad Section, and also working as Associate Professor in EEE Department, G. Polarity Engineering College, Kurnool, Andhra Pradesh, sir. So I'm happy to hear your lecture on building this topic, especially this particular topic, IoT. For this, sir, my question is, I'm working in college now, sir. So to how much extent this particular concept is useful for an engineering college buildings like this? Hello. Sir, my question, is it clear, sir? Sir, you are on mute, sir.
Yes, the question is clear. I mean,
Yes.
in fact, look, it is actually very, very relevant for college campuses. We have
Okay.
proven that in the IIIT Delhi campus.
Yes, sir.
We have actually done a few deployments on the IIT Delhi campus also. See, I think what we have felt is that in college campuses, right? In fact, it's a very good way to introduce this technology, which will
Okay.
help in reducing the energy consumption, as well as the data that is being collected from that college can be used for research within that college as well, right?
Okay. Okay.
So, but eventually, I think where practically things don't move much is that somebody has to then take ownership, right? Somebody needs to say that, okay, the college is investing 100 rupees into this technology, and we would want to then save, let's say, more than 100 rupees every year. So that investment in technology is paying back, as well as our students and faculty are getting data, right?
Okay.
For
Okay.
that, somebody on the college side needs to sort of be the champion and say that, okay, let's try this out, right? Often it's the lack of that one champion in the college, right? Because of which these things don't get adopted. But we have
Okay.
seen the benefits proven in IIIT Delhi campus, in IIT Delhi campus also. So if your college is interested and is willing to put in some small investments towards it, we are sure we'll be able to show a lot of energy saving benefits. And we'll be also because I myself come from academics, we'll be happy to then use these systems to support the advanced research within the college as well.
Okay. Okay. So that means if any faculty or students are interested even in this particular area, can we approach you, sir?
Yes, definitely.
Just you said that. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And sir, one more thing, this particular building management involves both civil as well as mechanical and electrical. Am I right, sir? Or
yes, so some knowledge of mechanical is useful because how the air conditioning works.
Yes,
so we do have people who come from that mechanical background who then work together with us on data, etc.
Okay.
But largely it's the software and the hardware people, so the electronics and the computer science folks. Because
Okay.
eventually, once you have understood this refrigeration or the air conditioning cycle, right, then it's about executing that with electronics, and then whatever millions and billions of data points that are coming in, doing machine learning on that data, right? So those are both sort of computer science and electronics problems.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Coming. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Next question, sir. Sorry to interrupt you. There is
Yes.
there is a next question from Devendra, sir. Devendra, sir, you can unmute your mic and you can ask the question to Professor Amarjit. Yeah, Devendra, sir. Devendra, sir, you have raised your hand, so you can ask your question. I think Devendra, sir, is probably he's not here. Next, I would request
I think the DV Rao sir raised his hand, madam. DV Rao sir. Hello, madam.
Sir, it's audible, sir?
Yes, sir. It's audible, sir. You can speak.
Sir, in our laboratory we have a lot of installations and buildings with a different capacity from a fractional kilowatt to up to 100 kilowatt, 100 kilowatt. So, so different buildings is there, pump houses, and then hostel buildings, guest houses, laboratories, pilot plant complexes. A lot of in each laboratory different vacuum pumps, air compressors, AHUs. So lot of things is there. So are you offering this technology building wise, or it complete one place control? How you are offering this?
So very good question, I think, and this comes back to this architecture, which is what I was explaining, that it's a distributed architecture, right? Now you may think of it this way, that look, if you have 10 pump houses across the campus,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
You may say that, look, I will first connect all the pump houses, because in many cases these pumps keep running all day and they waste a lot of energy, right? In that case, let's say you may only instrument pump houses with these gateways, and these gateways will then talk to the cloud. At the next stage, you may say that, okay, from pump houses, I will put in, let's say, a few energy meters in every building, right? One at the main incomer level and then one at every floor level, right? And I'll collect all of this data and I'll start making sense of this data, and I'll start controlling air conditioning also one building at a time. So again, you may take one building, which is the highest energy consumption building, deploy these wireless systems and the gateway in that building, make that building smart, move on to another building. So you can completely do it phase by phase, but eventually all of these things will come together into a single platform, right? While you may be doing it one phase at a time so as to reduce your investment, but everything eventually comes together in this cloud-based single system only. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, exactly. Okay, okay, sir. Got it, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Can I ask one more, madam? This is Harinath.
Please, sir, there is one question in YouTube.
Yeah,
Let me post this question first.
Sure. No problem. Rajgopal sir, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Rajgopalan sir, he has posted a question. It is an excellent lecture on BMS with IoT and AI. Will the bandwidth going to be issue in the large? His question is, will the bandwidth going to be issue in the large?
Very good question. So bandwidth
Sir,
is not an issue. See,
morning, sir.
the data we are talking about
MS Teams lo
a float. Is just a float or a decimal value, right? So, and even if you are collecting millions of data points, right? These millions of data points are all few bytes each, right? So essentially, I mean, just to put things in perspective, let's say one Domino store, where we instrument, from where we would collect roughly about, I would say, 30 to 50 million. Oh, sorry. I would say 200. I mean, 200 to 500,000 data points in a month, right? These 200 to 500,000 data points would consume roughly about 1 gigabyte in one whole month, right? So we are talking about very small bandwidth, and bandwidth will never be a constraint. We are not talking about high bandwidth videos and images. It's a simple time value data which doesn't consume much bandwidth.
Thank you, sir. Now I request the members from the MS team, they can post their question if someone wants to.
Yes, sir. Harinath sir, one more question. Sir, you said that even the data that is collected is analyzed. Sir, can you please just in brief elaborate what are the different techniques that are used for data analysis, sir, in this particular technique?
Sure. So like I said, because we are collecting huge volume of data,
okay,
so for us, data analysis is about doing as simple an analysis as possible, but that can translate into an action, and that action could either result in energy saving or better predictive fault detection, or better comfort for the building occupants, right? So in this case, for example, the analytical algorithm will tell that how much can I, based on the weather outside and the temperature in the building, how much can I delay the on time and how much earlier can I switch off the AC while still maintaining, let's say, a specific occupant comfort. And occupant comfort can also be defined in terms of, let's say, 24 to 26 degrees Celsius. So if my objective is that I want to have a building operating between 24 to 26 degrees Celsius, and the problem statement is what is the right time to switch on the AC, what is the right time to switch off the AC, right? And we do that based on the temperature outside and based on the thermal profile of the building, and that thermal profile of the building is built using the historical temperature data collected from the building, right? Similarly, in this case, where we are looking at a bad compressor, right, we would have an algorithm that would figure out whether there are on and off cycles that are coming in the air conditioning unit or not, right? And if that algorithm says that the on and off cycles are not coming in properly, then that algorithm would raise an alert. So essentially, all of our algorithms are starting from that I want to give an actionable insight to the end user. So we start from the insight that we want, and then we would work towards what is the most efficient algorithm that can be built, looking at the data that we are collecting to give that specific insight.
Next.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next, I would request Dr. N.V. Satyanarayana to ask the question.
Thank you, Benias. Amarjit, if we go back in time, the first time we met is in 2015, I guess, at Kochi. So that's where, we were all fascinated with the talk that you gave. So I remember, you also mentioned that if you have this high power, high resolution power analyzer, you can actually capture who's entering a particular room and who's exiting, right? So that will actually, in a way, be a very good surveillance system without actually capturing the image, because capturing the image would mean, some intrusion into the privacy. Okay. So are you now looking at introducing this as a solution for some sort of surveillance as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. See, I feel that very high resolution sampling, right, which is done at megahertz, I think that thing is still a research topic. Right? It is still not at a stage. So it is still not at a stage where one may commercialize this, right? There is actually, since then, one of the PhD students who did PhD with me graduated last year, and he published a lot of papers on using this high frequency EMI, EMC data for doing specific signature analysis. For the specific problem that you mentioned, I mean, there are those infrared cameras that exist in the market, which would not capture the image, but would capture the heating pattern, right? And based on the heating pattern may tell the occupancy of a person. They may not be able to tell who exactly that person is, but that anyway includes the privacy if you are telling who exactly the person is. But if you are simply counting number of people in a room without any threat to privacy, you can use those thermal IR imagers that are already prevalent. I mean, in fact, there are interesting aspects, right? So with electrical signature, I mean, if you remember, we have also talked that if I monitor the TV electrical consumption with very high resolution at megahertz level, we can even tell whether you are running a horror movie or a romantic movie, right? Because the depending on the illumination of the pixels, right? The horror movie will have a lot more dark pixels, right? And therefore, you can actually, depending on who is watching the TV, you can actually tell what the genre of the movies they are interested in, right? But those are all interesting research problems. Really, I mean, there are easier ways, right? People simply collect data from the smart TV these days to tell which genre of the movie you are following, right? So there are easier ways of collecting that data now, but these are all interesting research problems to say that what are the alternate methodologies, though they may not have a commercial value.
Another thing, if I may permitted, Vinyas, another question, can I ask?
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have a question from my end. When the whole building is automated, how do we address the faults due to equipment? Equipment could be AC, electrical installation, lifts, like these equipments are there. Then how do we handle this?
Right. So essentially, what we are doing is uh, we are implementing different subsystems within the building with different types of sensors. And these sensors typically are either energy meters, which are looking at the energy profile or the power profile of that equipment, or let's say temperature humidity sensors if we are talking about air conditioning. So we look at the temperature data to say that whether the air conditioning unit is operating properly or not, right? Or in some cases, we would directly connect with these traditional systems like lifts, etc., over standard protocols like Modbus, right? So the data that we pull from these systems would then give us an indicators of health. What we do is all this data goes to the cloud, and then we have built an analytical platform where our analytics team can run different algorithms for different types of data sets. So temperature data would have a different algorithm, lift data would have a different algorithm, power from the main incomer would have a different algorithm, power from the air conditioning unit would have a different algorithm. So there are different algorithms running on different types of data sets to again create actionable insights. And as I have been talking about again and again, we broadly classify these actionable insights into energy savings, better fault detection and diagnosis, and improved comfort of the people, right? So within these three broad categories, we would then try to create insights based on top of the different variety of data that we collect.
Sir, one more question is there because this question is being posed when I even presented one of my seminar lecture. There were questions when we are talking about smart cities and IoTs, then how do we address the privacy? Because people more think about the privacy and the security than rather than thinking about how the situation is offering us the flexibility of doing the things.
So there are two aspects that you talked about, security and privacy. These are two different things, right? When it comes to security, these operations, so all our communication is secure HTTPS, right, or MQTTS, and it is done over a VPN tunnel, right? So it is as secure as saying that you are doing a bank transaction on your laptop, right? If you feel comfortable doing a bank transaction which involves money from your laptop, then you should feel secure about controlling air conditioning in your building also, because I mean the underlying security protocols are exactly the same, right? Privacy, right? I mean, in a way, none of the data that we are collecting relates to an individual in the building, right? We are talking about controlling an air conditioning, let's say, that is serving the whole multiple labs in one zone of a building. Let's say if we take a university building as an example. Now, I am in no way detecting that who is in the lab, right? What we are detecting is that we are sending air at 22 degrees Celsius, and that air is coming back at 26 degrees Celsius, right? Which means that not much cooling is required in the zones that are served by this air, right? Because the air is returning back at 26. So which means I can switch off my air conditioning or increase my set temperature. Now, in none of this data that we are collecting, we are associating an identity of an individual. And therefore, the notion of privacy doesn't come into picture. Right? So which is why in the earlier question, I was saying that none of the data that we collect relates to identity of an individual that we are rather monitoring the environment and whether it is person X or person Y in the environment. We are looking at the heat load and not the person himself or person herself. So the notion of privacy again doesn't come into picture.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is one question from the YouTube attendee. This question is, what is the cost of these systems?
It's a very broad question. So the cost would depend on whether you are installing one sensor or 100 sensors or 10,000 sensors, right? But what we have seen is it is much cheaper than the traditional building management system because one, we are making it completely wireless. So the whole cost of laying down cables and the cost of the cables is completely taken care of. Two, we are, like I said, it is a hardware light, software heavy model, right? So we are bringing in a lot more intelligence into the software that is running the system rather than adding more and more pieces of hardware, which means it is easier to deploy, easier to maintain, and therefore you reduce the cost of deployment and cost of maintenance also. So the overall cost compared to the traditional system is significantly cheaper. That is all I can say.
Okay, I request Dr. N.V. Satyanarayana. He can ask the question.
Yeah, thank you, Vinyas. Another thing, of course, cost is something which, as you said, depends on where you want to install, how you want to install those things. That's fine. But then I would like to know what is the business model that you have. Like, say, for example, our institute, which is more like maybe some of the IITs where we have buildings at isolated places. Okay, and the power grid, of course, there's one place from which the power is being distributed, and the load is of air conditioning wherever the sitting rooms are there, wherever we have the analytical equipment, and the other load is on the power pilot plants. So in such scenario, how do we approach, and then what is the business model in the sense, do we need to buy these high resolution power analyzers? Do we need to buy these IoTs, or is it something like on a defined savings that you are able to give out? We give the differential amount to you. So what's the type of model in which?
Sure. Let me give a longish answer to this, right? So without naming the institute, right? So we instrumented one building of one of the government institutes. The data was clearly showing that there is a huge amount of wastage that is happening, right? And that was roughly about 3-4 years ago when we did not have control, right? So we gave feedback to the people that, look, these are the 10 things if you do, right? Let's say we suggested that you are switching on your air conditioning at 8 a.m. You can delay it to 8:30, right? Etc. etc. So we gave specific actionable insights, but because we didn't have an automated control loop, we gave them as insights, right? But none of them were acted upon. Because they didn't act on it, they didn't get any savings, right? So these type of examples were an eye-opener for us that we need to close the loop. You cannot rely on human in the middle, right? Because they would have their own preferences, right? Now our business model is different, right? So actually we have instrumented many 4-5-star hotel properties also across the building. I mean, the Taj, Oberoi's, I mean, name any large brand, and we would have instrumented at least one of their buildings, right? So in those cases, what we do is we would study the space. We would create an ideal investment scenario where, let's say the institute, in your case, right? I mean, just putting some random numbers, right? Let's say you guys are spending 10 crores on electricity bill every year, right? So if we instrument the whole build, I mean the whole campus, right? We may come back and say that, look, it will cost you roughly about 80 lakhs, right? Or 1 crore to instrument the whole campus, right? So you pay that, but we are willing to guarantee that you will save, let's say, 7% or 8% or 10% of your 100 crore bill, right? Which means we are willing to write it to you that if you don't end up saving, let's say, 70 lakhs, right, you can penalize us, right? And so essentially what we are willing to write off is that the ROI period. So why, see, we don't say that, look, I will put everything for free and then let's calculate the savings and do energy savings. See, because in that model, there is always a conflict that how do you calculate the exact baseline? Baseline that you think is correct, I may think is incorrect, and baseline and person X may think some other baseline is correct, right? So there is always that dispute on baseline, right? Versus if you say that, look, I mean, I am not saying that if I save you 100 rupees, you give me 50% of that, right? I am saying that I will give you savings of approximately 100 because I've charged you 100 rupees, right? If those savings are between 90, 80 to 110, 120, none of us care, right? Because you are largely getting those savings, right? But yes, if those savings are 200 also, I am not going to come and ask you more. But if those savings are 50, right, then you can penalize me, right? So in that model, people, I mean, see, someone, the question that comes is, who will sign off and say that, yes, the exact saving was 100 rupees? If based on that person signs, the amount being paid is to be decided, that person's neck is on the line, right? And therefore, he or she will not easily sign. Versus if he or she is simply to be known that the institute is anyway paying, right? I am here largely validating that those numbers are in the ballpark, right? So then the person is a lot more comfortable signing off, right? So just to avoid those type of individual conflicts, our business model is that you pay upfront, but we are willing to sign off performance guarantees. And if those performance guarantees are not met, we are willing to be penalized also.
Thank you, Professor. There are no more questions from the YouTube attendees. Now I request Dr. N.V. Satyanarayana to give his concluding remarks. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Binyas. Professor, that was wonderful. It was amazing. The type of amazement that I had when I first heard you is still there. Okay. Now, there's only one thing is that maybe we could not have you here to see our campus and then implement these solutions. Okay. So maybe I think we'll soon do that. And what I've done is I have also requested my state in charge, Narayan Rao and his team, who are in the ESD team, to be here. So they have listened to your talk. And I hope that, things will take off from now. Okay. Now, this let me thank you for giving this lecture. It gave a wonderful insight into what one can do with old buildings which actually bleed a lot of energy, which consume a lot of energy. Okay. Somehow this particular concept or this particular idea doesn't dawn, let me say, in government installations, where what happens is the babus, because to make the babus very comfortable, the attender comes and then switches on the AC at 8 o'clock itself. So that culture is there. Fortunately, after our director took over, that we were able to avoid. So it's always switch on and switch off. But then frequent switch on, switch off also is not the right type of solution, as you have articulated in your lecture. Because manually, whatever you try to do, it may not happen the way the automated systems do work. Okay. And another good facet of what you have mentioned is you are not looking at the buildings which are coming up now. Okay, because the buildings that are there now will continue to be there for another 30-40 years. So for these 30-40 years, do you continue to consume and waste energy? So that's a question which all of us need to address. And here is a solution where you have offered. Okay. And the second thing which is, I think, most of us love is that you have made your your firm open to have internships from the students. I think that is very pleasing to the students who are listening. Okay. The IEEE chapter is here. They will see that, and also the most of the IEEE members are professors themselves, so they can take this message home to their students and then see that there are some interns who will be coming at different levels. So that's also a very good thing that you have said, right from undergraduate to graduate to PhD. You can support interns, and these interns, once they join, they have a live environment of what is happening, and that's where they'll be able to appreciate. And the third thing is the model, the business model that you mentioned. So this is looks very attractive. I think more and as the day progresses and as the lecture that you have given becomes hits more views in the YouTube, I'm sure that people will come back and then knock your doors, and you have your plate full. So that's what I think. So that's from me as far as the concluding remarks are concerned. Over to you, Benias.
Thank you, Dr. N.V. Satyanarayana. Here we come to the end of the first invited lecture. So as an organizer, the task for me has been quite difficult, reaching out to the invited speakers, taking their calls and notes from them. It has put me into a lot of tasks. So I have been tasked upon this pleasant duty to propose the vote of thanks. Let me first thank Professor Amarjit Singh for accepting our request to be invited speaker for the LS series. Your talk, How IoT is Revolutionizing the Building Automation in India, is very fascinating. And I'm sure with your intervention, several buildings and installations will soon be embracing IoT for energy savings. When I first conceived the idea of having this lecture to commemorate the contributions of Dr. N.V. Satyanarayana, who is superannuating next month, I never imagined that this idea will take this big shape. For placing L series on such big pedestal, I thank IEEE Hyderabad section, IEEE Guntur, IEEE Anantapuramu subsections for their spontaneous support. Let me take this opportunity to thank Professor Harinath Reddy, Professor Siva Reddy, and Professor Lalita, the chairpersons of the 3 sections of IEEE. As an individual, I would not be thinking of attempting an online lecture series of this magnitude without the backing of Dr. S. Chandrasekhar, Director, CSIR IICT. I thank him profusely for his support. I also thank the organizing committee members, Dr. A.G. Rao, Dr. Venkat Mohan, and Dr. Chandrasekharam of my institute for their guidance. I thank my fellow colleague, Sri Raghu Narayana, for his effort in getting the e-flyers ready in time and for preparing the groundwork for hosting the L series webpage developed by me on CSIR IICT website. I thank Mr. Radhakrishna, who heads our computer center, and his team for making the lecture available on MS Teams, YouTube, and Facebook platforms. Finally, I would like to thank the audience for the participation through electronic media. I'm sorry, viewers. I was not able to take up all your queries to Professor Amarjit due to shortage of time, but I am sure Professor Amarjit will surely respond to some of them in near future. Thank you, Professor Amarjit.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And I mean, my email is on the screen, so feel free to send me an email. I'll be happy to answer any questions that are still pending. And if any of you want to sort of take it up in your campuses, we'll be happy to do that. And as I said in my last slide, we are always looking for enthusiastic folks. So if you or any of your students or anyone you know would like to explore an opportunity of working with us, please do write to us. Thank you for inviting me to this series, and wish you good luck for the rest of the lectures. I look forward to the rest of the series too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you also.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I would like to join you as a student. Yeah, Professor Amarjit, are you there?
No, he has just left.
Okay. So, thank you, sir. Thanks for joining the session.